right, they sell the promise of more creative life, but, you know, do they really live up to that? I bought Moleskine notebooks all the time, and instead of filling them, I said things like, pick up more contact lens solution. Until 2011, when I finally turned a page and I did my first doodle, I was sitting outside a coffee shop, and this is it, birds reading books. I thought to myself, I've got it. So if I could do one, I could do others. So what I started to do was fill in the right-hand page, I would doodle whatever came to my head. I'd go back, I would paint it. And then on the left-hand side, I would write a spontaneous essay inspired by whatever picture I had done. So having completed this one single document, I felt really proud of myself. I slapped a collage on the cover, and I said, I'm finished. I now have a record. Granted, it was a record that would mean nothing to anybody but me, but I had still triumphed over the blank page, where once there had been nothing, now there was something. Albeit it was trivial, but it was still a victory of sorts. So having finished one, I thought, I'm gonna push on. I'm gonna do 100. But 3 only got me to 93. I hit a 4th, which took me to 124, which was a bad number to be on. So I kept going, and I kept going through 2011 into 2012. From 2012, I went into 2013. And before I knew it, at 2013, I realized I'd done 50 volumes. That's 50 volumes with 31 drawings each, or I'd done 1,550 doodles. At this point, I thought, you know, I could go on to 100 volumes, but I had more or less done what I had set out to accomplish. So I decided to say to myself, what am I going to do with these doodles? So I decided 2014 would be the year of doodles made real. So this became a project about translation and about fidelity. If I had imagined it, I had to manifest it in the world. So, for example, if I doodled a seahorse with an umbrella, that meant I had to go out and I had to find a seahorse and a tiny umbrella. By the way, miniature dried seahorses are really expensive and they smell terrible. You know, I really like this idea of taking what I imagined and made it real. One of the volumes I did was a whole series of masks, and of course they felt obligated to make these masks. So they took over our dining room, which my wife can attest to. And at a certain point, I stopped and I looked at our dining room filled with these masks, and I said, is this sufficient? Is this being real enough in the world? And my answer was no, it wasn't. So I went ahead and I decided we had to have a parade. So I convinced the small museum that this was a worthwhile endeavor. They bought into this. So last October, as part of the West End Art Walk, we did something called Art That Walks. And it was a very cold day in October. By the way, all you ID students, you were notified of this. But they didn't show up. Anyway, 2015, I was done with doodles, so I moved on, but I wasn't done with Moleskines. 2015 became about fake anthropology. So my first Moleskine, I Googled the term Iron Age implements. I found these pictures, I combined them, and I created something that looked like an artifact. And what I liked about this was it started to tell a story. And for me, this particular project was really something somewhere between collage and sculpture. But I had really developed that taste for making things. So in the summer of 2015, last summer, I decided to take a metalsmithing class. Because what I was going to do was I was going to take something that was created with silicon chip age technology, the collage on the left, but use iron age technology, heat, hammer, anvil, and create something that was actually a silicon chip age thing. So, fake anthropology. So having done my first sculpture, I moved on. So again, everything on the left was all a digital creation. It could only have happened in the 21st century, maybe the 20th century. Everything on the right was something that I could have done, you know, in 800 BC. So having explored the past with my first Moleskine notebook, I then turned my eye to the future. So my next project, I Googled the term electronics components, and I combined them to create a whole series of robots. And then I combined them in a volume called Field Guide to North American Robots. So every single robot then received a name. So this little guy here is the Kendoku. There's a Latin name for it, and then a little history of it. So as far as I know, I'm the first person to combine images from Lucha Libre magazine with portraits of Baroque composers of the 18th century. This became known as Los Monstruos del Barroco. And it tells the story of the rough and tumble world of 18th century musicians. A Google search for my fourth one, standard wiring diagrams. I just really liked this diagram, so I started to pull components and combine them together to create an iconography. So who's this iconography for? For electricians. So I did a volume called Current Culture, the Hidden Language and Culture of Electric Circuit Diagrams. So that's the black cat symbol. One of my favorites. Google the term Roman and Greek philosophers. Take the nose up from one, the chin down from another, and you get 2 for 1. Philosophers, all new philosophers. So this is antihistamine. Antihistamine is the father of hypochondria. So I relate to. I have done a lot of Moleskine novels. So in 2015, I did Moleskine novel. This was a medical case history of an epidemic of a dermatological outbreak where coral sort of took over faces, but only the faces of British authors from the 1920s. So, at a certain point, my son said to me, "You don't really care about quality, you just care about quantity." I said, "Yeah, I call it churn." So I even created a metric called Creative Output Index. Anyway, 2015, 22 Moleskines, 682 images, 682 pages of text, 32,850 active minutes. Thank you.
He was very cool.